Mesmer is pretty interesting right now after this patch. There's a lot of different ways you can build your Mesmer, and they're all pretty viable. I'm kind of now leaning more towards like a Phantasm-y build. I'll go over the options as I see them. Yes, and I apologize for the sound lagging. I don't know what it is. I think it's my mic. It might also be the sensitivity of the mic. So, Mesmer, it is full Zerker with Scholar Runes, which you might want to get used to hearing. I have a focus with Sigil of the Night, a sword with Sigil of Force, and a pistol with Sigil of the Night. A lot of people like offhand sword. I don't, and I'll explain why when we get to the traits. Additional equipment I have for this build, I have a sword of perception stacking, and then a focus and a pistol of perception stacking. Mathematically, perception stacks work out best. You want, with a Mesmer, 100% chance to crit. So, 100% chance to crit is the target with a Mesmer build, and perception will get you there a little bit better than you would with Bloodlust, obviously. I have Undead Slaying set for when I do a Raw. And then I have a staff with Sigil of Energy. Staff is kind of random when you'd use that. And then I have another sword with Sigil of Energy. When I do a Raw, my setup looks like this. And that way, when I fight Lupicus, I have all the dodges from the Sigil of Energy, and I have the 10% versus dead on both sets. How it works. For normal dungeons, I definitely prefer the pistol, and I'll explain why when we get to the traits. This is one of the options that I have right now. There's a couple different ways you can build the Mesmer. I'm not entirely sure what the absolute best way is. Starting in Domination, Empowered Illusions, 15% more damage for illusions. This just makes your Phantasms hit harder, and you have an additional 100 power. That's good. 20 in Dueling, Precision, crit damage, very good. Phantasmal Fury, all your Phantasms have Fury, that's really strong. Vigor when delivering a critical hit, these two combo, pretty good. Sharper Images, illusions inflict bleeding on critical hits. So that's reason number one of why I like the pistol. The swordsman hits once every few seconds, and so it'll inflict 1 stack of bleeding. The pistol Phantasm hits 8 times when he attacks, so you can get 8 stacks of bleeds. So you do a pretty significant amount of damage extra with this trait if you use the pistol rather than the swordsman. Blade Training reduces the cooldown on sword skills and gives you extra precision. The precision's always good, and the reduced cooldown makes Blurred Frenzy a lot better. Blurred Frenzy is like your main defensive ability. Being that you're going to have Perma Vigor and 2 dodges and Blurred Frenzy, Mesmer is one of the easiest classes to survive on in melee, especially because they have a pretty decently sized health pool. So 20 in Inspiration. Retaliation to Phantasms, no big deal. It doesn't really do much. Glamour Mastery cooldown. It's really good because feedback is one of the most powerful skills in the game. Additionally, you can use Null Field, which is also a glamour, if your team needs AoE condition removal. Phantasmal Healing, regeneration on your Phantasm, not so awesome. Then Warden's Feedback, focus blocks. It makes your Warden reflect projectiles, and it makes your Temporal Curtain basically like a wall that reflects projectiles. So Mesmer can do pretty much 80% reflect uptime by himself. So there's a lot of dungeons where people bring guardians, but really if you have one Mesmer who's on the ball, you don't need a guardian, and you can just roll with the one Mesmer. Back to traits. Strong. One thing the build's missing out on is Phantasmal Strength. There's not really enough trait points to get us there for the 15% Phantasm damage. And I think that Empowered Illusions kind of covers it. Plus you get 100 power, so it's just overall. And then 20 in Illusions. Compounding Power, you get additional damage for each of your active illusions, 3%. So you can, this is up to a 9% boost. Unfortunately, it only affects you, but it just makes your auto attacks better and makes you a lot better, especially with your reflex, because if you reflect a big projectile, that damage boost will be affected by the projectile that it shoots back. This was the big change. Illusionist Celerity moving to 15. Illusionist Celerity going to 15, it used to be at 25, means that you don't have to go all the way to 25 anymore to skill. This means that your Warden goes on a super slow cooldown, your Duelist goes on a super slow cooldown. You'll basically be able to keep your Phantasms up that much longer. It's just really good, and they stack. So if you have another skill that reduces pistol cooldowns, and you have that, you're going to be looking at a Duelist that comes up in like every 10 seconds. So it's really good. It's one of the most powerful traits in the game. It used to be at 5, but they realized how good it was, and they moved it to 25. That was kind of an overreaction. So 15 is really good. Phantasmal Haste at 20. This is the reason why I prefer Pistol over Swordsman, mostly. Swordsman is currently bugged. I'll show you. Not that this will really tell you anything, but Phantasmal Swordsman does not benefit from Phantasmal Haste. The way that this is worded, it says reduces recharge on Phantasm attack skills. I think there's a lot of people that don't even know what this actually does. They think Phantasmal Haste makes the cooldown on these skills lower, but it really doesn't. What it does is it makes the Phantasms attack more often. So instead of your Phantasm sitting there doing his attack and then sitting there for 10 seconds not doing anything, this will shave the cooldown that he sits there and not does anything by 20%, which is super powerful. It's basically like a 20% DPS boost for your Phantasms. So it just makes the Phantasms that much better. The other variant to this, and one that I might even like better, real quick, go all the way to 30 for Empowering Mantras. Same skills as before. So with this setup, you lose 100 power and you lose 15% damage on your Phantasms. But you gain 10% crit damage, you gain 100 precision, and you gain additional DPS for each mantra. For the most part, you're always going to have at least one mantra on your bar. In a dungeon that you're very comfortable with, where you know you don't need many heals, you can go with 2. You can charge up your mantras. I like Mantra of Resolve because you got the nice AoE condition removal for your party. So just right now I'm rocking an 8% DPS boost. I think that 8% DPS boost is way worth more than the 100 power and the Phantasm bonus, especially when you consider you're getting additional crit and additional precision. So I think this trait setup is probably overall a little bit better. Your Phantasms don't hit as hard, but you hit way harder. And really, your Phantasms benefit from the precision and crit damage, so it's not even it's potentially arguable that the Phantasms don't even hit that much lighter. So I think this is overall probably the better trait setup now. Someone mentioned that Warden was bugged with Phantasmal Haste. I hadn't heard that, but it's entirely possible. But yeah, that's the other cool thing. With Warden's feedback and IC, you get what is 20% and 20% together, like what, 44%? Your cooldown on the Warden is 44% less. And yes, Thordir is correct. This DPS increase will affect your reflex. So you get much more powerful reflex that way. All those Lupicus speed kill videos that our guild and other guilds put out, they all use powerful mantras, and when they fight Lupicus, their bar looks something like this. So they'll have the 12% there. They'll make sure that they have 3 illusions up, so they have 9% there. And their feedback will do massive damage. That setup. For general purposes, though, you don't really want this many mantras, and you definitely don't need the stability in every dungeon. So I would just go with Signet of Inspiration to give your team better might stacking, better fury stacking. But overall, I think this is what the build that I'll be playing for the most part until I find better traits. But I think for the most part, this build does best in PvE after this patch. And it pretty much does everything. Does anyone have any other conditions or questions about the Mesmer before I swap to the next? The new heal for the Mesmer is OP, actually. Unlock it because it's so OP. Signet of Ether is 1,000 health every three seconds when you have 3 illusions up. It's pretty strong compared to well, it's relatively close to Warrior Healing Sig if you have 3 illusions. I've noticed a lot of people are saying to use where is it? Deceptive Evasion to make sure you always have 3 up. That's not a bad idea. I don't know. For the most part, I'm just gonna stick with the Mantra Heal and the Ether Feast, just because the extra DPS is worth it. I always fight in melee? I do on a Mesmer. Well, I do on every class, but more so on a Mesmer than anyone else. Mesmers are the most survivable class in melee because you have critical infusion, which the extra dodges will come in handy, and you have Blurred Frenzy, and you have Distortion when all else fails. So overall, a Mesmer has way more ways of dodging enemy attacks than other classes. So I would say Mesmer is the most defensive class, maybe arguably up there with Guardian in melee. If you can't melee with a Mesmer, you can't melee. As far as gear goes, I crunched the numbers with the Ascended armor, even though I don't have it yet, obviously. You definitely, like, it becomes an interesting issue. There's a couple different factors. The most important factor, I think, is when you're in a team and you're going to try to do the most damage possible with your feedbacks, you want your critical chance to be 100%. So basically every build decision you have is going to be, how do I get to 100% chance to crit with my Mesmer? The cool thing with Mesmer is with perception stacks, you don't need Assassin's Gear to get to 100%. Full Zerker, Perception Stacks, Banner of Discipline, and Fury will get you to, I think, 96%, something like that. And then the food, you can use Slices of Candy Dragon Roll or the Curry Butternut Squash Soup will get you to 100% chance to crit. So Full Zerker is the way to go on Mesmer, in my opinion. Yeah, and as Ephemeral Being says, if you use Offhand Sword, you even get another block. But like I explained, I think with Phantasmal Haste in your build, you don't really need, you don't really necessarily want Offhand Sword. I like Revolver for that